Hello everyone, Gabriel BG here this week with another tutorial. Thank you kindly for your support. I see the views and the subscription counts have been going up, so I've asked you to share, subscribe, and like these videos if you find the content of benefit value. You absolutely have, so thank you so much for your support there, as well as with the music at GabrielBGmusic.com. Please feel free to follow along on social media by clicking on the links below in the description. And again, thank you so much for your support. Going right into this week's topic, we're going to be talking about psychic empathy and an alternative to the shielding method, which is used by psychic empaths. And all of this is going to be built upon from last week's video of the 5th Hermetic Principle of Rythym. So if you haven't seen that video yet, even if you are familiar with Rythym, I would definitely advise to watch that video, because I decided to make 2 videos just because the actual concept of Rythym and the law of compensation and the law of neutralization, we had to go into pretty in-depth conversation for that. So I definitely advise you to check that out so that this video will make more sense. So going right into this week's video, we're going to define psychic empathy. A psychic empath is somebody who is extremely sensitive to not only their own emotions, but to other people's emotions. So whether or not they're actually having other emotions projected onto them, or they're just so sensitive that they're receiving other people's emotions, it's actually one and the same. But psychic empaths tend to have difficult times in social environments, in going places, in big crowds, because they're a little cautious that they're going to be a victim of some type of psychic attack or emotional attack, and that they're just going to be this magnet for all these lower level vibrations that are going to come into their area of comfort and just kind of linger on with them for a while, and they may be very apprehensive to go out in social settings, which is sad. So I'm familiar with some individuals, and that's one of the reasons why I'm making this video, is to help them with an alternative to shielding. And shielding is essentially a defense technique. And what you're doing is, as a psychic empath, when you're going to go into a social situation, you're going to create a force field or shield or egg or whatever you want to call it. There's many different, or a bubble, there's many different descriptions. And you're going to cognizantly turn the energy of that force field on or lower the vibration or increase it, so that your end goal is to prevent negative energy from coming into your area of influence. So that's basically what shielding is in a nutshell. And for a long time, I never really resonated with that technique, because to me, once I understood magic more and manifestation and understanding the Hermetic principles, I was kind of thinking, well, isn't that kind of somewhat a self-fulfilling prophecy of inviting harm into your life? If you were kind of cognizantly thinking that if you go out into an environment that all these negative vibrations are going to start attacking you and finding you, it's almost as if you're sending that information to the universe saying, I don't want this to happen to me. Well, then guess what's going to happen to you. So I was pretty excited when I came up with this method using the 5th Hermetic Principle of Rythym, and I'm looking forward to share it with you. In the beginning, it's not going to be easy if you're used, especially if you're used to the shielding technique, but I do promise that it does get better. And if this does happen to resonate with you, then you are definitely going to see the advantages over shielding. And so essentially, what we're going to focus on today, and what this technique really is built on, is self-mastery of your own sensitivity to rise above the lower level vibrations. So they literally go underneath you. You absolutely bypass the lower level vibrations. So you are no longer at the mercy of other people's abrasive emotions that they're going to influence that they're going to affect your sphere of influence. So I like to call this rising above the pendulum, using the 5th Hermetic Principle of Rythym. So, real quick recap from last week is the law of compensation is basically counterbalance. So the measure of the swing to the left is the measure of the swing to the right. And the law of neutralization, which is the second, is we're going to actually be going more into the law of neutralization as more of the mastery level. So you first need to be aware of the law of compensation, because that's what's going to get us to the mastery level. And the law of neutralization is essentially rising above the lower level vibration. You could experience the higher level vibration, and then you could literally climb up the pendulum while its motion is in the lower level vibration, and polarize yourself so that you don't have to feel the lower level vibration. So essentially what this is we're using counterbalance. So essentially, do not swim against the current. Everything has its ebbs and flows. Everything flows out and in, everything has its tides, so forth and so on. So if you are apprehensive to experience a lower level vibration, such as sadness, maybe you thought about somebody who passed away and you're like, you know what, I really don't want to think about this, I'm going to try to numb myself to it, I don't want to deal with this, it's too painful, I don't want the hurt, I don't want to feel that feeling, I want to avoid it. Essentially what you're doing is you're fighting that rhythm. The law of rhythm happens whether you like it or not. So being cognizant of the law and the way that nature works, we are actually able to manipulate these laws, or at least understand them to the point where we can use them to our advantage. So instead of fighting that flow toward the inevitable opposite counterbalance into the opposite direction, what I actually advise to do in learning about this alternative to shielding so that you can become a master of your emotion is to actually use counterbalance. So while you're meditating, what you would be doing is you'd be intensely focusing on that undesired emotion of sadness or pain or maybe even anger or whatever it may be. And we're going to go into deeper meditative techniques later on with a couple of tutorials. So if that'll help out with this technique as well. So basically though, you're going to use counterbalance. So even the natural swing, so instead of fighting it, you're going to literally jump, like on a rope swing, you're going to jump into that direction and actually push that counterbalance. So you're not just feeling it, you're feeling it for all it's worth. Completely experience that emotion so that you can clear out your emotional karma and baggage, so that you no longer have to be a slave to that feeling. Instead of fearing it, you're going to face your demons, and you're going to absolutely experience that feeling so that it'll no longer have to haunt you. Okay, why? Well, the reason why is the more that we begin to do this, we'll be able to make room, as essentially from the counterbalance you've used, to actually use all that energy and actually push the pendulum up as high as you can, experience it for every last drop it's got. So you can now experience the reciprocal of that emotion. So if it was sadness, it would be joy, happiness, so that you'd actually feel that happiness. And then the swing comes back in the opposite direction. We all have cycles, just like the 4 seasons, so forth and so on. And when that swing goes the opposite direction, no longer will you be afraid to experience that feeling of sadness or whatever it may be. Anger, maybe you're afraid to be angry because something, because you weren't allowed to when you were younger or something like that. Obviously, I'm saying in a very controlled setting, we're going to be dealing with these emotions during meditation. So not something that we're going to be, a maniac out in society, okay? We're talking very controlled, a very controlled meditative environment where you're totally going into your subconscious and you're totally listening to that primal self and truly feeling that emotion. Okay, so then once it does go in the opposite direction, you're going to be able to feel the reciprocal of that feeling and make way for it so you can actually enjoy that. Because again, law of compensation, if you're afraid to feel this much, then you're not going to have much room for joy either. So essentially, our feelings come from our primal self, our animalistic self, our ego. And the ego gets a bad rap, but it's just your body. Mind, body, soul. So, you know, you don't have to punish yourself. I mean, it's just a part of your body. It's you do not own your body, you simply live there. So it's your temple. But from a very fatalistic, animalistic side, your emotions basically run your body because, you know, fight or flight, and when you're a baby, you have to have your caretaker has to take care of you. You literally cry and you feel emotions, and that's how you communicate. So that's why we feel first, and that's why people say, you know, it's difficult to think with your mind when your heart is in love and your emotions are going. That's the reason why, is because it's a very primal emotion, and primal tends to hijack the entire system. It's like, all right, I feel this, that's it, boom. That's why people lose their temper, that's why people will fly off the handle, so forth and so on. So essentially, once we're able to really start meditating and expressing our emotions and fully feeling them, and you could also give to deity, give to goddess, gods, the all, Jesus, God, whatever you personally believe in is absolutely fine. That's a great way to give your suffering to a higher power, to something outside yourself. So you literally inhale the reciprocal emotion and exhale all of that lower level vibration that you're looking to clear out to deity, God, goddess, so forth and so on. So the idea of this is what's going to happen is when you're going to be out in public, you're going to feel, you know, or essentially, especially if you're part of a dysfunctional family, which some of us are and some of us aren't, or some type of dysfunctional relationship, or you know somebody that maybe they deal with their emotions in a very unfortunate way to the expense of other people's feelings. You'll still feel, you'll feel a little zing, but you won't be as emotionally sensitive. So the more that you the more that you start working with these feelings, the more that you start experiencing them, you'll start to see that when somebody like kind of jolts you or something, you feel something, you'll feel it, but it doesn't have to linger as long. It doesn't have to ripple as long. You'll literally be a quick jolt, and then the law of neutralization occurs. And that's where you're actually able to start mastering your emotions. So now that you know, if this is your subconscious, your primal self, and this is your conscious, everything above this, essentially your primal self is going to be an autopilot. It's always going to be on. That's what's going to feel the emotions first. And be like, hey, this is what's going on, you know? And then your conscious is going to be the one that, oh, wow, I'm feeling something. What's going on here? So rather than be reactive to the feelings that are getting thrown your way in your subconscious, like, whoa, something's going on here, I'm getting hurt, I'm feeling really emotional. Now instead of triggering the conscious and you to react that way, you're going to simply feel it, and you're going to absorb that blow. And instead of feeling it, you're going to be like, okay, you're going to then polarize yourself using the law of neutralization. Allow that pendulum swing to go there, because this is, again, your subconscious, your primal self. And when the pendulum flows in the opposite direction, you could then ride down and experience pleasure and happiness and joy and all of the higher level vibrations. But you do have to master your lower level vibrations by fully experiencing them and meditating on them. And you actually are making room to be able to experience more love all around in general. And love is just a simple form of gratitude. So understanding all of this, you are essentially going to master your own emotions, and you won't have to worry about maybe creating a self-fulfilling prophecy with the shielding method, which you're kind of, you know, some folks may be worried about, you know, as far as to, did I put enough shield on today, and what's going to happen, and these people look nasty or aggressive. No, you're going to literally self-master. You're going to work on enlightening yourself to the point where you're literally ready for anything, but you have a choice as to what you feel. So one little thing I just want to point out before I end this video is you rise above your ego and your primal self. You are not your feelings. You do not have to own your feelings. You simply experience them. So why focus on social fears and be captive of your own emotions when you could overcome them with Hermetic principles and mastery of yourself through meditation and understanding yourself. So that's this week's video, and I will see you next week.